What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Dark Frequencies. This is episode number 10 of our show, UAP, UFO Disclosure, Mere Days Away, and Sam Harris on the UAP threat. That is the title of the show, and I just wanted to say, well, actually, before I do that, let me introduce, of course, the co-host of our show, Skeeve. Skeva, what is going on? How's it going in Arizona? I got to imagine the climate is just absolutely wonderful, right?
It's very hot here, but I'm doing well, actually, and excited to talk about some UAP stuff.
Yeah, it's hot in the desert, and that causes UFOs to crash all the time. That's why they're always there now. But yeah, so guys, on today's show, what the plan is, actually, we were going to do, well, I wanted to do an episode like this last week, and I was really excited about doing an episode of Dark Frequencies even before this report was released because of the Sam Harris situation that is going on, because I believe it's highly unusual, very interesting. I think there's a lot of little subplots to dig into with the Sam Harris thing. And so I really, that broke about a week or so ago, maybe like almost 2 weeks ago it broke, this kind of thread that was going on with Sam Harris and these different comments he was making. And I reached out to Skeeve. Skeeve was busy, was unable to do it, so we had to schedule it for this week. But basically what we're going to do here, guys, is this is just kind of like we're going to get caught up on all the information that has come out basically since our last episode, and then also prepare for the unveiling of whatever information gets unveiled possibly this Friday on June 25th could possibly be the official date that the unclassified version of this report is available for the general public, for you and me. Now, Congress has already been briefed on this. They've already been briefed. That's already taken place. What we're waiting for now is for the unclassified report that's going to go out that's going to be available to the general public. So that's what we're waiting for at this moment. So Skeva, the first thing I'll ask you about is, so Sam Harris, this guy Sam Harris. So if you're into like podcasting in like different genres of podcasting, or just people that talk about interesting topics like TED topic type people, you may have ran across Sam Harris, but it's very possible that you haven't ran across Sam Harris, because I didn't know who the guy was up until maybe like 2 years ago. And then I accidentally stumbled upon this guy. And I'm a real fan of a lot of Sam Harris's thoughts on different things. I think the way he breaks down topics is very measured, very collected. And he doesn't, like, words don't just come out of his mouth willy-nilly. Like, he really takes his time and he really tries to think about things. And but anyway, the question I had for you, Skeva, was, do you have any awareness of this Sam Harris guy before like hearing about this?
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen him on podcasts, right? I've heard a few of his podcasts, but I think the way I originally found him was he was on Joe Rogan, and I think that's how I discovered him.
Yeah, in fact, I'm not sure if we might have had a clip actually of Sam Harris on Dark Frequencies when we were covering Runaway AI, because he's somebody that has been relatively outspoken. He's outspoken about the dangers of thermonuclear war. He he thinks like this is something that everybody's forgotten about, but we've got like unbelievable numbers of nuclear warheads that are in China, in Russia, in the USA, and a lot of different countries all over the place. We still have all this nuclear material, and there's like this doomsday clock, and like nobody's even concerned about it. Nobody ever thinks about it anymore. He has some good discussions on that. He has good discussions about the potential dangers of AI. He also has discussions about whether or not free will is an illusion. And he actually has a breakdown on free will being an illusion. He has an argument for it. And I think if anybody wants to take the time to check that out, you might be shocked by how convincing his argument is about whether or not we really have free will or not. And it's a little more nuanced, and you got to like understand what he's actually talking about from that standpoint. We still make decisions about things, but anyway, you'd have to listen to it. But I discovered this guy via Joe Rogan accidentally, and then I found out, oh, he has all these different talks. He's an atheist, by the way, and like he has these like long discussions where he tries to like say the separation of church and state, and we don't need to have religion anymore, and we can have morality without religion. And he has all these long, and I'm not really into that. I'm agnostic, and I'm not an atheist, but I'm also not like an evangelical Christian or anything. I'm agnostic. I don't know. I do believe that the way I'll put it is, I don't believe everything is 100% just random accident, just like boop, just something just pops out of nothing. I believe something had to some force, something had to create everything. I have no idea what the hell it is. I couldn't begin to tell you that. I'm agnostic. But he's atheist, and he's well known as being an atheist, and he does all these discussions on that. But the thing is, if you're in a situation like me where you work, you're doing work, but you have the ability to like listen to maybe podcasts or something while you work, it's incredible to have some really interesting conversations to be able to listen to while you're doing your work, because I could have a really great podcast and it's like I didn't even work that day hardly. It's amazing how awesome that can be for some of us that have these crappy jobs. But the good benefit is our brains are free. We can think about something as we're working, and we can absorb something and be entertained or challenged. And I think that's really cool. So Skeeve, when this Sam Harris thing started to break, did you hear anything about Sam Harris and UFOs? Or when I mentioned it to you, was that like the first time you found out about him discussing something about UFOs?
Trying to remember. I don't know that I heard him ever talk about UFOs or anything before until you mentioned that all of this stuff was going on with him and with the possible disclosure help that he may be providing.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we cover the quotes that he's made over the last couple of months? He's made these quotes. They've been in different podcasts. The podcasts have been released at different times, but the quotes were made in, it was a different order and way that, like, he was on this Ricky Gervais show where it's Sam Harris and Ricky Gervais. It's called Absolutely Mental, and it's like this like kind of comedy podcast thing with him and Sam Harris, but you have to pay for it, and so you can't just like go onto YouTube and get it or whatever. But that's where the first quote was made, but it was actually the last podcast that released officially. So anyway, I'm going to do it in actual chronological order. So we're going to switch over here to this window here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the first Sam Harris quote. Now, so the first quote I have is he was on this Ricky Gervais thing. It's called Absolutely Mental. And at one point he talks about UFOs. Okay, so here's one of the things that he had to say about it. So he said, "I've had someone reach out to me and has assured me that I'm going to be on a Zoom call with, former heads of the CIA and Office of Naval Research, and people whose bona fide are very easy to track, and they're concerned about the messaging around all of this to the public and dampening down panic and conspiracy theories." Okay, so that's the first part of the quote. Let me get to part two of his quote here that was with the Ricky Gervais podcast. Then he says, "What is being promised here is a disclosure that is frankly either the most alarming or the most interesting thing in the world, depending on how you take it, but it's not a representation of the facts that will give scientific skeptics any comfort. And that's just we're faced with the prospects of having to apologize to the people we've been laughing at for the last 50 years. And that second piece of that quote was the one that kind of broke out into the mainstream. And you guys got to understand, man, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful that Sam Harris is one of the guys that was contacted about this, because the thing is, the hardest of the hardcore skeptics, they would be in the Sam Harris type camp. Sam Harris is the type of guy, he's like a Neil deGrasse Tyson type. He's like one of these like scientific types that basically thinks, these people are like tinfoil hat, these are true believers, like he's the type that would never take this thing seriously. Like he's the prototype of it. So for him to be saying these things has caused major controversy, because there's a lot of people that are fans of Sam Harris that have no interest whatsoever in UFOs. In fact, still to this day, they think Sam Harris has been like, they can't wrap their heads around this fact that these words are coming out of Sam Harris's mouth. And so they believe like, no, Sam must have been mistaken. He like this does not compute. This does not compute. He's like one of the perfect people you could possibly come to and talk and unveil this, to help have these public figures, these influencers out there kind of like explain this situation to the general public. So Skiva, there are these first quotes here, although these are the last quotes that people heard, but they were recorded first, where he was on this episode with Ricky Gervais. I don't know if you happen to hear it, because there is like there was a snippet of this that's on YouTube, but it gets pulled because, this is like, it's copyrighted content, but people have grabbed it and they've thrown it on YouTube for a brief minute. But do you have any takes on these particular quotes, or the fact that he's talking about, we've been laughing at these people for the last 50 years, but now we might have to actually apologize to these people?
Well, I think that's a really interesting quote. I didn't actually get to hear that interview, but the quotes are pretty awesome. Like it's interesting that 50 years of history, we might have to go back and be like, well, you know what? We were kind of bullshitting the whole time. Guess what? This is all real, right? I feel like, man, people love to hate. People love to pick on things that aren't 100%, right? There's no solid proof. People like to point at, especially people that believe in UFOs and stuff, right? I find all of the UFO stuff extremely interesting. I think it's super fun, if nothing else. You know what I mean? So it'll be really interesting to see if anyone has to eat their words over this last 50 years of picking on people.
Yeah, well, you got to imagine, as being a UFO, like I've been a UFO enthusiast, kind of closeted in a way at certain times and out of the closet at other times, and I'm straight up out of the closet at this point now, because it's like, yeah, this may be our chance, this might be like Revenge of the Nerds, you know what I mean? Like this is the time where it's like, it's our turn now. Okay, all you scientific skeptic mofos, you guys are going to have to eat major effing crow, and we are going to enjoy this like none other, and we deserve to enjoy this like none other, because like literally for 75 years this has been ridiculed. We have the giggle factor. One of the things I had in the info for this video is that it does appear, if nothing else comes out of this entire thing, the giggle factor is being removed from the equation, and that is massive. And there has always been this giggle factor. But there's more quotes from Sam Harris. So let's go ahead and finish these quotes off. So the first set of quotes, this was him with Ricky Gervais. It's a podcast called Absolutely Mental, where at one point it's just a side note in this podcast. It's not like the podcast is about UFOs. Sam Harris doesn't have anything to do with UFOs. UFOs. That's what makes this so incredible, that he's been contacted and he's making these quotes that are, almost unbelievable, because people find it hard to believe. Okay, so the next one is, I got some quotes where he was on a podcast with Lex Fridman. And so here's one of the quotes that he has here. He says, "I've received some private outreach, and perhaps you have. I know other people in our orbit have. People who are claiming that the government has known much more about UFOs than they have let on until now, and that this conversation is actually about to become more prominent." And then it continues. Let me get I actually have 3 different little quotes here on the Lex Fridman podcast. Quote number 2 is, he says, "Whoever is left standing when the music stops, it's not going to be a comfortable position to be in as a super rigorous scientific skeptic who's been saying there's no there for the last 75 years. This was another comment that when this comment hit, people were like, what? Sam Harris? Sam Harris said this? No, not my Sam Harris. Because Sam Harris is the complete opposite of a conspiracy theorist. He's like a complete 180 degrees from that. Okay. Then he goes on to say, there's too much data to suggest it's a hoax. There's too much radar imagery. There's too much satellite data. Whatever data they actually have, there's too much of it. All we can say now is something is going on, and there is no way it is the Chinese or the Russians or anyone else's technology. That should arrest our attention collectively to a degree that nothing in our lifetime has. Okay, and so this is Sam Harris on the Lex Fridman podcast, and I actually have a quick little clip. I'm not on this clip here. I'm not sure which of the quotes he's going to go into on this clip, but let me go ahead and run this clip real quick, and then we'll go ahead and talk about it right after this clip is over. So let me go ahead and get this clip queued up. This is Sam Harris on the Lex Fridman podcast.
And there's no telling what spooky things may in fact be true. I mean, I don't know if you've been on the receiving end of recent rumors about our conversation about UFOs very likely changing in the near term, right? But there was just a Washington Post article and a New Yorker article, and I've received some private outreach, and perhaps you have. I know other people in our orbit have people who are claiming that the government has known much more about UFOs than they have let on until now, and this conversation is about to become more prominent.
Yes.
And it's not going to be whoever's left standing when the music stops. It's not going to be a comfortable position to be in as a super rigorous scientific skeptic saying there's no there, who's been saying there's no there for the last 75 years, right? The short version is it sounds like the Office of Naval Intelligence and the Pentagon are very likely to say to Congress at some point in the not too distant future that we have evidence that there is technology flying around here that seems like it can't possibly be of human origin, right? Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with that kind of disclosure, right? Maybe it's going to be nothing, no follow-on conversation to really have, but that is such a powerfully strange circumstance to be in, right? I mean, it's just, what are we going to do with that? If in fact that's what happens, right? If in fact the considered opinion, despite the embarrassment it causes them, of the U.S. government, of all of our intelligence, all of the relevant intelligence services, is that this isn't a hoax. There's too much data to suggest that it's a hoax. We've got too much radar imagery. There's too much satellite data, whatever data they actually have. There's too much of it. All we can say now is something's going on, and there's no way it's the Chinese or the Russians or anyone else's technology. That should arrest our attention, collectively to a degree that nothing in our lifetime has. And now one worries that we're so jaded and confused and distracted that it'll get much less coverage than Obama's tan suit did, a bunch of years ago. It's who knows how we'll respond to that, but it's just to say that the need for us to tell ourselves an honest story about what's going on and what's likely to happen next is never going to go away, right? And it's important. It's just the division between me and every person who's defending traditional religion is.
Anyway, it's going on a little bit longer than I thought, so I'm going to go ahead and end it right there. I didn't know how long this clip was, so let's go ahead and go back here and grab this. We'll just grab one of these. Okay. So anyway, so that was Sam Harris on the Lex Fridman podcast where he was talking about this. And then there's another quote. So we've got one more. So Sam actually did a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson on his own podcast, Making Sense. But it's behind a paywall, and now you can listen to like about an hour of it, and then when they get to the really good stuff, that's when it fades out, and you have to like be subscribed to his podcast to get the rest of it. But anyway, this is what he said in the podcast with him and Neil deGrasse Tyson at one point. Here's another Sam Harris quote. He says, "I got contacted by somebody who gave me a heads up with respect to all of this happening, and he more or less told me, listen, this is... when this other shoe drops, you're going to be in the position of having to acknowledge that all the experts are on the same page. And there's just this blanket declaration that we're in the presence of alien technology and we don't know what to make of it." So this is Sam effing Harris. Like that's what I don't think a lot of people understand here. Sam Harris is a hardcore effing skeptic. Like this guy is a skeptic. This guy is not a UFO guy at all. So if you are, like he mentioned, rigorous scientific skeptics, so if you put yourself into that category, the fact that these words are coming out of Sam Harris's mouth, that should really disturb you in a way like nothing has disturbed you before, because he's one of you. He's not a tinfoil hat wearing person. He's one of you. He doesn't say things like this. He's not going to put himself on a national stage to look like a complete and utter idiot. That is the last thing he's ever going to do. So someone reached out to him and showed him some information to suggest that we're going to have to get the public ready, because there is this concern of panic. There's a concern of like widespread, that there's the concern of like conspiracy theories going wild, because when this comes out, like if this comes out in an official manner and it's like, oh my God, this is real, well then people start scrambling around like, oh my God, what else is real? Why do they know about this? And then you have all these different podcasts of people saying, yeah, they've got bases on Mars and, the military's on Mars. So Skiva, what do you think about, now that you've seen all of these quotes and heard all of these quotes, and you know that Sam Harris is like this intellectual guy that has like New York Times bestsellers. Like, this is not the guy that UFO people would champion. He's the least likely guy ever.
I find it really interesting. And it all kind of brings up a question for me, and maybe you can kind of comment on this, is, me and you, we know each other from having virtual reality podcasts, right? And we are always in a state where we are behind non-disclosure agreements and NDAs. I'm really curious because we have a few people on this show we're going to be talking about that have been contacted and been told this, that there's some help that's needed with disclosing this information to the public. Why do you think these people can just freely talk about this stuff at this moment? Why you would really think there'd be some kind of NDA or something saying, all right, listen, you can't freak people out, right? So let's not talk about this till we're all on the same page. I found it really interesting. that this is kind of the case. And I think it's Sam Harris to me is a very credible source. I don't know why. I don't know how this would ever benefit him to bullshit about this stuff, right? I mean,
Well,
I feel like
I could give you an answer to that, and like, to play the devil's advocate, is like, some people, some of his hardcore fans have actually complained about this, and they said, look, this is just because they can't handle this. This violates their worldview. People do not want their worldview violated. People feel very safe driving to the grocery store, coming back, going to sleep at night. They feel like they have an understanding of what this world is all about. Now, all of a sudden, you throw freaking aliens into the mix, or whatever the hell these things are. They don't have to be aliens. These things can be, what is it called when they're actually from our planet, but we're just not ultra terrestrials or whatever? So these things could be from like under the ocean. Like, who knows what the hell these things are? But what we do know is their technology is light years ahead of ours. And so we are no longer the top dog. That worries people on a seriously subconscious level, because it's like, okay, look, I know that Russia is out there. I know China is out there, but they're humans. And they're not going to want to destroy our planet because they also live here too. And we've got this kind of like collective agreement. So I'm not really that worried about Russia or China. I can go to sleep every night. But if I know that there's some weird ass things that are flying around in our skies that can basically do all sorts of things, we just don't know what their motivation is. So like, this violates people's worldview. And so they don't want to believe in this, because like, it makes them uncomfortable, it makes them nervous. They don't want to believe this. There's a lot of people that their first reaction is denial. No, this is stupid. No, everything's been debunked. In fact, today I was on Twitter today, and I tweeted something about this episode's going to be delayed a half an hour. And then some guy popped in. In fact, hold on. Let's go to the webinator for a quick second here. So here we are. This is the webinar. And let's see, where am I? I'm going to go ahead and add a new thing. And let's go Twitter. Twitter VR game rankings. Let's see if I can find that tweet that happened today. Let's see. So I tweeted, so I did this tweet right here. I said, today's start time for dark frequencies, push back a half an hour. And wait, somebody responded to this. Did they delete it? Let me see, tweets and replies. So I replied to this guy. Okay, but where's his original tweet? No flinch. This no flinch guy. Let's see, tweets. So I don't know. Did he delete the original tweet? Anyways, he basically said, like, this guy replied to my tweet. Here it is. He says, you cannot disclose the unidentified. You can only sensationalize and get budgets approved. There's a good reason every single UFO case has been debunked. Every single UFO case has been debunked. That is just categorically so wrong. You just don't even know how wrong that is.
Pulls his credibility right out the window.
That is so effing wrong. But this is what these people think, and they have to think this. They have to think this, otherwise their worldview is violated. And people, like I said, nobody wants their worldview violated. When your worldview gets completely shattered, there's going to be a lot of people, like, when this eventually unravels, and it might not unravel on June 25th. We might not get a smoking gun. We might not have Biden come up and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is Centaurian 12. I'd like you to meet him. I mean, it's not necessarily going to happen in that sort of way, but it does appear what I think is going on here. Toothpaste is out of the bottle, ladies and gentlemen, and the toothpaste is never going back in. This has started. This is underway. There's no going back. We can't remove this now. So it has begun. Now, disclosure may continue to unravel over like 10 years, 20 years. So, 5 years from now, I'm not necessarily sure that you're going to be able to look at a children's textbook and it's going to be like, yeah, and extraterrestrials were discovered on 2021 and da 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 da, and it was unveiled. I don't know that this is going to be in your textbooks in 10 years, but the process has begun. And people's freaking worldviews are about to be shattered into a million pieces, and a lot of people don't like that. And hey, I understand it. If my worldview was about to be shattered into a million pieces, I wouldn't like it either. What were you going to say?
Well, people definitely don't like to be wrong. That's one thing, and people don't like change. Those are two things that people absolutely hate: change and being wrong, right? So when we talk about alien life or life that we don't quite understand, and how the technology is so much more advanced than ours, it threatens people, right? They don't understand now things are going to be a little different. Like you said, we're not the top dog anymore, right? We have to adapt to this whole new thing, this whole new way of living, because who knows what else is going to come out of this? Will there be technologies that start getting integrated into our everyday life? Like to the Stars Academy, right? I like going back to them because that's their job, is to go out and find and recover alien technologies, reverse engineer it, and release it into the public in consumer products. They also have a division where they have storytellers and artists for exactly this reason, to be able to take some of this tech, take some of this knowledge, and be able to bring it out to the public in ways that hopefully don't freak people out. You know what I mean? So they have all this. It's really interesting that we haven't really heard why hasn't the government gone to Lou and said, hey, you got this whole thing going on, maybe you can help us as well with this disclosure thing. Again with the NDA though, why are people even allowed to mention this before a certain day?
Yeah, well, maybe they're allowed to kind of dance to excuse me. They're allowed to kind of dance around this topic a little bit without getting into like major specifics and stuff, because I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, do they really like the fact that Sam Harris is saying this stuff? But I think, the cat's out of the bag, man. Like this has already begun. This is already happening. Like, see, the bottom line here, let's go back to all the videos, right, that we've had recently. Let's go back to like David Favor and, all the pilots and like 60 Minutes and all this stuff. The bottom line question is that a physical object? Is that a physical object? Okay. And
define physical.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is it a physical object? Because if it's a physical object, it's game over. It's game over for you effing skeptics. It is completely game over if that is a physical object. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson and people like this, because again, their worldview is so precious to them and they don't want to shatter their worldview, so they're going to go into every possible direction other than accepting this as an actual reality. So what does Neil deGrasse Tyson go to? Oh, he goes to glitches, visual anomaly, like pilots mistaking things, like visual, like things going on, all the different things that we've heard from the skeptics. But what people fail to realize, I think, with all of this is how all the data that they have, there's 4 different pieces of data that are saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. 4 different and this is the US military. This is not Zimbabwe's military. This isn't Zimbabwe's military announcing that they discovered UFOs. This is the U.S. military, radar, FLIR, the data. I mean, come on, man. So this other aircraft carrier got a reading with their brand new radar system, by the way. See, that's the other thing people don't realize here. Brand new radar system came online in 2004. Which allowed them to see things that they weren't seeing before. Do you know that some of these pilots that have been seeing this stuff, it's invisible to the naked eye. Some of this is completely invisible to the naked eye, but when they activate their FLIR, forward-looking infrared radar, it shows up. So these things have stealth capabilities. They can make themselves visible and invisible at different times. The bottom line, though, is if this is a physical object, it's game over. It is straight up game over, because there are only a handful of possibilities of what it could be. You know, we could talk about Russia, we could talk about China, we could talk about secret U.S. military crafts that we're still not announcing right now, and then you can talk about something else. Those are the options. That's all there is to it. The problem with the Chinese and the Russian thing, so if you want to go down the Chinese and Russian bandwagon, and even if you want to go down the, no, it's secret military black box project bandwagon, how do you explain this? How do you explain the Foo Fighters? How do you explain Roswell? How do you explain Kenneth Arnold? How do you explain us having this technology for 75 years? It also, the Chinese and the Russians had this technology in 2004, yet they're going to hide it completely for 16 years and not use it in any part of their society in any way, in any shape or form. They're going to completely hide it. They've had this technology since 2004. Good luck with that. Good luck convincing yourself about that. But people that do not want to have their worldview violated, what they do is they grasp at straws, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a good straw. I'm going to hold on to this straw because it makes me feel a little bit better, because then I don't have to think about what's really effing going on in our skies and the fact that you no longer have any control. That's what this is really about. It's the loss of control. It's being at the whim of some other thing. We're now the chimps. We're the chimps, you know, and there's something else that's above us that can do whatever the F they want with us. And you don't like that. And I completely understand that. I might have gotten a little bit off topic, Steve. Go ahead.
Can you imagine if it comes out that this isn't alien technology, or they're like, oh, guess what, everyone? We found out this is China, right? I think that would be even worse, right? Can you imagine?
But it's kind of impossible, though, because China had this in 1940? Do you really believe that?
Sure, but imagine if we found that out, then it would be like, oh my God, China has all this stuff that we couldn't identify, which means we have nothing like it. That means they are light years ahead of us. I mean, I think that would be extremely threatening to all of the world powers. I think that would create more chaos than if we were like, hey, there's this other life form that's ahead of us, and maybe they can teach us things, or who knows, right? But I think it would be worse to find out it was China or Russia or someone like that.
The hilarious thing, too, is that people will continue to say, no, all of this has been debunked. These are lens flares. This is swamp gas, et cetera, et cetera. My question for these people is, so if that's true, then how does swamp gas hover over a nuclear installation and disarm our nuclear missiles? Could you explain that to me? How swamp gas can get the codes to our nuclear missiles and literally take them offline? And
it's interesting, isn't it, that all of these things are almost always seen above nuclear facilities and government facilities and in the armed forces facilities. It's very, very strange that this is where these things are typically seen the most, above some of the most powerful and potentially damaging things on our planet.
Yeah. So, but like, and going back to the nuclear thing too, is like some of these nuclear incursions where they were over nuclear facilities, they were just hovering over nuclear facilities. Like, this is well documented shit. All right. And some of it happened in like the 80s. So you're going to tell, like, let's go down the China road. Let's go down the Chinese road. Let's go down the Russian road. Let's go down the top secret USA road, because that's the one that people really, because there's some people that are be like, yeah, no, it's not China. It's not Russia. It's ours. And then we'll say, but wait a minute. The one thing that this report supposedly does say conclusively, the one thing that they do know conclusively, they don't know anything else conclusively, but the one thing they do know conclusively, this is not ours. And then they'll go to, oh, Project Bluebeam, and we'll get into that in a second. But the thing is, even if you say that this is ours, so you're telling us in 1985, we had the technology to go from 80,000 feet to 2 feet above sea level in less than a second? You're going to tell me that, because I'm going to laugh in your effing face if you tell me that. But these are the things, but see, they don't connect the two. They don't connect the two. They think of one little thing and they're like, oh, this takes me off the hook. But then they don't realize, oh, but I've got a problem though. I've got a problem with my logic chain, because if you go back into the 1980s, how do I explain that we had this technology in the 1980s? You can't. So give it up. It's over. Game over, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll give you a valid way to explain this entire thing away. Okay, I'll give you the last bastion of hope that you have for you scientific skeptics out there. Here's your last bastion of hope. Your last bastion of hope is that this is actually basically it's like a spoofing technology. So this is a combination of holograms and radar and FLIR and various spoofing technologies. So it's a combination. This is the only hypothesis that'll work, but it still doesn't work. It still doesn't work, because you still have to explain how it turned off our nuclear missiles in 1985. So you still got a problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is very similar to the problem they had with Roswell. So the government had a real problem with Roswell because of the fact that, there were these child caskets and stuff, right? And they knew that. They knew it was a problem. So they had to unravel a story that accounted for the child caskets. And that's where they came up with this idea of, at one point it was crash test dummies. At one point it was deformed Russian children. I mean, goddamn, to the lengths that they went to try to deal with that, because they knew they had a problem they had to deal with. But like some people could say, so Skiva, I'm going to give you this explanation. I'm going to say, dude, no, here's what's going on. Maybe there's a foreign country, a foreign adversary, right? China, Russia, whoever, that has the ability to beam a hologram, a three-dimensional hologram, not sure exactly how this is going to work, for a pilot that's flying around and moving. It'd be one thing to be a stationary object on the ground. You're looking at a hologram in the sky. That's one thing. But to have a three-dimensional hologram that's actually moving around that pilots are seeing, okay, but let's just say they got it, right? A three-dimensional hologram in addition to simultaneous radar spoofing and simultaneous front-looking infrared radar spoofing, because you have to spoof all these other things along with the hologram, all simultaneously, all coordinated perfectly, to create this like false thing, where people are like, oh my God, there's this thing up here, it's violating our airspace, it's showing up on our radar, but it's all a hoax. So what do you say about that, Skeeve?
I say that would be a little crazy to have all of these highly trained military personnel and jet fighters and all of these people that have gone through rigorous training on how to identify things and how to lock onto things with this equipment and how to use all this amazing technology that our government has. It wouldn't make any sense to me that all of that equipment is wrong. You know what I mean? Like the military might as well just throw everything away and start over again, right? I mean, it would be a little silly. We're not hearing from, Joe and Sally Walmart that they got abducted last year. These are legit personnel that have been telling us that they've gone decades seeing objects and clusters of objects for every single day. I mean, it just doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, the only thing that you can go, because the problem is, I mean, I actually could conceive of the possibility, like, I seriously do not doubt that our military has worked on spoofing technology to spoof enemy radar. And I seriously don't doubt that they've worked on holographic technology like Project Bluebeam. The idea behind Project Bluebeam is you're taking advantage of the ionosphere of the planet, and you're actually you're using the ionosphere as a like projector screen, and you're projecting holographic images using lasers from like submarines or whatever. And then you could have drones. You could have small drones that are spoofing the heat signatures, but everything has to be coordinated. The problem though is like, it goes back to, okay, so these were the same things that were turning off our nuclear weapons in 1985. Like the logic leap to go from there, that's the problem. That's the problem for all you skeptics. So the only thing that you can turn to is that this is just an elaborate disinformation campaign. That you got to go to, like, that's your only hope at this point. Your only hope, literally, is that this is a complete disinformation campaign that has been going on for like more than 40 something years, because they leaked out fake information in the 80s about nuclear installations being deactivated, reactivated, launch sequences being effed with, and apparently in foreign countries. Lou Elizondo, this is even more startling. He recently revealed that this information, that apparently in some other countries their nuclear equipment was offline and it was turned online. He was saying it's one thing to have your nuclear capabilities online and being deactivated and turned offline. It's another thing for those nuclear capabilities to be offline and actually turned on. That is significantly more concerning. Okay, but you would have, your only rationale is to say that this is all part of some elaborate scheme for government funding. And we played a clip recently where the military has basically unlimited government funding. So the idea that this is some elaborate scheme to like dramatically increase military funding, I find that difficult to believe. So Skiva, are you with me on this, that the only out that they have at this point in time is that basically there's a campaign of misinformation going on?
You know what makes me kind of curious after hearing you talk about the nuclear stuff is, why do you think they would be turning this stuff on and off? You think it's a flex? Like, hey, when we come down and reveal ourselves, don't even bother. You can turn your shit on and off like that. No big deal. It's kind of an interesting thing to do, right? Like it's almost a show of power.
If you believe it, there's also been F-16s and stuff that have chased various craft and have actually tried to activate their targeting systems, and their targeting systems completely went offline, for brief periods of time. The problem is trying to, like, you can't even understand what a German Shepherd is thinking. I mean, how are we going to understand what a freaking, something that's like 1,000, 10,000, millions of years possibly beyond us? We have no, like, trying to understand what their intentions are is like an ant trying to understand what our intentions are when we turn on the sprinklers. Like, we have no effing clue. That's the problem. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely scary. I mean, some people think about the possibility of an actual legitimate invasion possibility, and if that were to be true, this would be this is the ultimate long con of all time, because these guys are patient as F to be like, yeah, we're going to be here for 1,000 years monitoring humans, and then all of a sudden one day let's launch all the missiles and let's attack. So
yeah, that'd be a little silly. You imagine if we were going to invade a country, but we just kind of popped in every once in a while just to kind of mess with them and be like, hey,
yeah,
we're coming eventually.
Yeah, it's like we're visiting China for 2,000 years and then we finally decide to attack them 3,000 years later. I don't know. That seems kind of weird. But
it is.
But there is
silly.
The timing of this, though. Like, I'm actually slightly disturbed. You want to talk about like your worldview being disturbed and stuff? The timing of all of this does disturb me a little bit. I'm not even going to lie about that. I will be completely honest and admit it. Something about this does not compute to me. Okay, because like I've been this UFO nut job basically my entire life, pretty much. I mean, there's been different times in my life where I was really into it, and then there's other times where I kind of forgot about it for like a decade or even 2 decades. But I've always had a fascination with this thing, and then to find out, like, to see the things that people are saying. Let's go to let's go to Reddit real quick, because like the stuff that is going on here. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me pop this up. So on Reddit, like the quotes that are coming out from like different Harry Reid, you know, but all these different people are coming out with quotes. So Ralph Blumenthal, the journalist who broke the UAP story in the New York Times, says Congress are being briefed on recovery of off-world material. So this is like breaking news. So this is going to be probably part of what we find out about. But apparently this guy on this podcast was talking about how basically they were shown slides. So when they were given all this information, one of the slides talks about off-world material. So like this guy's saying, this doesn't necessarily mean they've recovered off-world material. I got to read it in that kind of a voice, right? This guy doesn't mean they recovered off-world material, man. But they're just being briefed about it, bro. Like, you're going overboard on this. But basically, there were slides that mentioned off-world materials. And so some people are saying, well, they're just showing those slides. That doesn't necessarily mean... Shit is unraveling, folks. I'm sorry. Shit is unraveling. I think you guys are going to have to deal with this. Those of you that are skeptics out there, I think your days are numbered, homies. I think it's about to collapse on your ass. Because there's too much. Like I said, some of the toothpaste has left the building. Good luck getting it back in. Even if we don't get like the smoking gun and all of that, like when this happens, there is so much that is popping off right now. It is really out of control. What did you want to say, Steve?
Oh, I don't remember, honestly.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going off on some tangents here, but yeah. So
I do love your skeptic voice, though. It's my favorite.
So yeah, there's lots of stuff. See this, I've been paying attention to the UFO subreddit like over the last couple, like this is where I'm at every day. I like check this out, and there's a lot of stuff on here, and I mean there's a lot of dumb shit as well. There's tons of dumb shit on here as well. But it's amazing how many people, the number of people that have joined this UFO subreddit, like it's doubled in like the last couple of weeks, like the amount of people. And there's a lot of people that are, these are not like UFO people. These are not conspiracy people. They're not like Bigfoot believing type people, anything like that. And they're coming in here because they've seen someone like Sam Harris. That's the thing, dude. This is a difference. Oh, by the way, there's somebody else that was apparently briefed on this. So let me go ahead and pull this up. So Sam Harris isn't the only one. There's a number of people that have been briefed on this. But this guy from the History Channel, is it Scott Wolter or whatever? So I recently saw this. So there's a quote from this guy on a podcast. I was contacted by the Department of Defense to help out with disclosure, and I've agreed to do it because I've been convinced by the evidence. So this guy has actually been reached out to as well. Scott Wolter. I was going to look him up. So Skeeve, you got a chance to check this out or to find out some more information about this?
I listened to some podcasts with this guy, and he's got some contacts in Mexico, around the areas of the pyramids, I believe, in Mexico. And the people there have been digging up all of these crazy artifacts that seem to date back to like 3400 BC, with all of these weird alien-like symbols on them. And apparently, you know, he has contacts with these people, and he buys some of these things as they dig them up, right? And he studies them. He puts things under a microscope. He sends things off to labs to be dated, could be carbon dated, and all that. So it's very interesting to see that he is accumulating these things, and that he's also been contacted as part of this disclosure agreement. So, some of the stuff this guy has pulled in is really, really interesting, and I'd love to see some of the stuff myself. Everything from statues to, this guy he found this pipe, right, that someone was using to smoke something out of, and it has all this alien stuff on it, and the chemicals found inside were over 3,400 years old. It's all really, really interesting stuff. Statues of these human-like figures that are 9 plus feet tall. All kinds of interesting things.
I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. But going over here to the webinar, so yeah, he was on the History Channel, a program called America Unearthed, but I guess it's not still going on. But this Scott Wolter guy, but he apparently claims that he was contacted by the Department of Defense to help out in the unveiling of this information. And I don't know anything about this guy. I never heard about this guy until I saw him on the UFO subreddit, that apparently he had been contacted. But it's just another example.
Not just contacted. From what I was hearing, some of these people came to his house and stayed there for many days, right, presenting information to him and convincing him that they were who they said they were, and credentials and calls with other people and just all of this wild information. So I guess it's more than just a phone call, I'll say.
Yeah, and it's possible the same type of thing happened with Sam Harris, and the same thing could be happening with a number of other influencers and people like this, because that would be the smart way to do this. So if you're going to unravel, because if you unravel information like this and you blow people's mind, like a lot of people, they're not going to be able to handle it, right? And so a lot of people are going to immediately go into denial. There's a lot of people that are going to go into, oh, this is like some plot for a one world government, that they're going to go into all kinds of stuff like that, right? And that's expected, like that's going to happen. But what you can do is you can reach out to all these different people that have their own fan base, that follows them, and you break it down to these people, and then these people can break it down to their fan base. So for example, you have someone like a Sam Harris, and his fan base is perfect for this, because they're going to be the people that would never believe this in a million years. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson supporters. They're not going to believe this. So you reach out to these people, and this is a great way to unravel this, because what will happen is somebody will be listening to like a Sam Harris podcast, somebody that has no, like they think this is completely impossible. Somebody that thinks every UFO video has ever been debunked. That exact type of person, that's who they want to reach in this way. And so that type of person hears a Sam Harris podcast where Sam Harris is saying, look, I know this is not convenient for you, and I know this isn't what you want to have happen, but there's a possibility, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to have to apologize to people that we've been making fun of for the last 75 years. And so a hardcore skeptic, but happens to be a Sam Harris fan, happens to be tuning into a podcast like this, they hear that, and they might think, oh, Sam Harris has been corrupt, because again, they go down the denial road. That's the first road you go down. So you think, oh, Sam Harris has been corrupted. One of my favorites has been corrupted. But maybe just a little bit of what he says starts to seep in a little bit. And so there's this slow unraveling that happens, I think. So I think that's what could be going on with all of this.
It'll be interesting to see if anyone else steps forward, soon, and talks about being contacted about this, because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of influencers that have huge followings, right? Like, if it were me, I'd probably gone to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, people that have very scientific, no bullshit stances on things, and and had them kind of be part of this, as well as people like maybe Joe Rogan that have some of the biggest audiences in the world, that are really good at explaining things to people and presenting information in good ways. So it'll be really interesting to see if there's a whole plethora of people that come forward that maybe just haven't been kind of pre-talking about this stuff,
Yeah, like celebrities and all kinds of people, just like you get it, so you start to like change the tide where it's like, oh, there's like real well-known celebrities and stuff that are actually endorsing this. So I'm not necessarily going to look like a crazy person if I actually like start to believe this. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine like Logan Paul, like different like YouTubers and stuff, like they start breaking it down to them, and then like because my kids, they're that age and they watch people like Logan Paul, Impulsive, he has this podcast, and like, you could have somebody like that saying, like if someone like that is starting to talk about like this alien thing, man, they're this UAP thing, it's like real. There's some real stuff going on. You hear that, you're like, wow, this is really happening. This is really unraveling. They're trying to unravel this to everybody. I was at a thing last night. It was like a barbecue, and there was about 15 different people there. And at one point I brought up this subject about like how UFOs have like, resurfaced in the news recently. And it was amazing because of the 15 people there was only maybe 2 or 3 other people that had heard anything at all about this. And the rest of the people had no idea whatsoever.
Dude, I've been experiencing the same thing. People people still haven't heard about any of this going on, which is really weird to me. It's kind of a big deal, right? Oh, hey, there's other beings that have their ships whipping around and the military is trying to chase them. How are people not hearing about this? It's pretty wild. And some of it might be that they really don't want to, right? So they avoid this kind of information. They see a 60-minute special about UFOs and they just kind of, and they watch a game or something instead, right? Because this really does rock people to the core, I think, when they have to realize that we're not, like you said, the top dog anymore. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if people continue, if the government comes out with this big report and declassifies all this stuff. It'll be interesting to see if there's still people out there that have no idea or that don't want to.
Yeah, and so going back to this report, so I don't know if you heard the so we got some minor leaks basically from this report. One of them is, well, we got this, there was a news story that came out that basically said that the only thing that they can confirm is that this is not U.S. That's the only thing that they confirm. And everything else is potentially on the table. And they said it's not alien, but we can't rule it out. Like, what the hell does that mean? It's not alien.
Well, I don't think
why would you say it's not alien if you can't rule it out?
Yeah.
Why would you even say that?
I don't know. I think they want people to take them more seriously, maybe, but I don't know, right? You can't, you can't come out with speculatory. I can't speak today, but it's interesting how they're gonna roll this out. I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna work out, right? Because they have to approach this in a way where they don't look like liars. Do you know what I mean? Because one of the big problems here is if they continue to try to hide information and then one day they just put it all out and say, guess what? We lied this whole time. Then they're going to lose a lot of trust in people. So I think that they know they have to be very careful with how they do things, right? And as they're putting out hard data, that is, and they're not trying to speculate on things. I think that's the only way they're going to really be able to do it. They can't have told us all of this time that there is no such thing as aliens and then go, just kidding, there's aliens. Sorry. But trust us on the next thing because we won't lie to you.
Well, they could pretend that like the 75 years of denial was not them, that they could pretend that this is a new phenomenon, They could pretend that, I mean, that's they could try to do that. I don't think it would work very well. But then some of their own information, they're talking about the nuclear installations going back to the 80s and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to spin their way out of it. But like on the webinar here, we can say this is NBC News and like the UFO report. No evidence of alien spacecraft, but can't rule it out. I mean, what is like that? What does that mean? Like, to me, that like, why would you even have, like, it's like, well, there's no obvious evidence that it's like, it doesn't say Centaurian planet on the side of it or something, but I mean, like
made in Centaurian.
So it's like, but they can't rule it out. Like, so if they can't rule it out, what?
But you know, maybe there's things that some people already know, right? Because like we were saying, this doesn't necessarily mean that there's a rock a few solar systems over that has this alien life form, and they're zipping over here and checking us out. This could be stuff under the water. It could be interdimensional, but still from the same planet, but not in our realm of existence. There's so many possibilities, but from sci-fi and movies and all of these things, we are automatically looking for alien life form, but it might not be alien like we perceive it, right? So I don't know. It's all very interesting, and I'm dying to get my hands on this report.
Yeah. So but then there was another guy. It was another congressman that was saying that. He was saying, I think people are going to be disappointed in this report. So I've had we've heard that, we've heard other people say, and then there's some people that say, no, there's enough in this report that it's going to blow the whole thing wide open. Like this report is going to, so it's like, I don't know, we're hearing all kinds of stories. And then what's his name? Jeremy Corbell is saying that if the government doesn't release a particular video, he's going to do it. So supposedly he has some video that he's going to release that is on the day that this release comes out. Some video that is supposed to be like a smoking gun video, like a close-up view.
And too, that if the U.S. government has had interactions every single day for decades with these things, and they've been recording this stuff and trying to figure it out and launching task force to go out and investigate the stuff, that we're not the only country that has, right? So maybe there is a lot of other information out there from a lot of other world powers, and who knows if they will be revealing things, right? Who knows why the hands are being pushed here, why these people are being pushed to reveal some of this information. All we can do is really speculate, right? Is there another country coming forth? Are these beings saying, hey, we're going to speak up if you don't, because you guys are going to kill each other if no one does anything? It's all interesting. The timing is interesting. It's interesting that there's this pandemic, was maybe, derived itself in a place with a biolab. And they're up there going, these guys are going to whack each other soon if we don't intervene. It's all very interesting with all the racism and the hate and, the riots that were happening last year and all of these things. Is it something to make us change our focus onto something else? Or is this happening because we have to acknowledge this before things go terribly wrong?
I feel like there is absolutely some sort of deadline that we don't know about. This doesn't make any sense to me. You've got this pandemic, all this pandemic shit that's been going on. There, like you said, there's so much craziness that's going on in our world already. To throw freaking aliens or whatever on top of that just seems absolutely ludicrous to me. So what I believe is, unless they're doing it specifically because there's so much craziness going on that they think this is the perfect time, that like there's so much other stuff that people won't be so overwhelmed by this, because I guess that could be a theory. Another theory is, like, I've heard a lot of different theories about this. So one theory is China. It's been heard that China is going to freaking release this, and China's going to come out with, so One of the quotes that Sam Harris has is about when this other shoe drops. That somebody told him that when this other shoe drops, like it's a different shoe. And so,
Yeah,
and people,
and I don't believe in for a minute that it's China. To be honest with you,
well,
China
no, not
is
that
the
it's
one
China,
country.
but there's
Right.
this theory that China is going to release their information. Like they're
Well,
basically going
sure,
to say,
and
confirmed.
that's what I'm talking about because China is the country that's known the most for hiding everything from its people. People in China can't watch YouTube. They can't go on social media like we know it. Everything has to funnel through their government's firewalls. Every bit of information has to be controlled by the government to control the perception of the people, right? They are very much an enslaving government of their people by not giving them the truth, by only giving them their version of the truth of how they want their people to act and how they want their people to see things. I can't imagine something like this disclosure being from a country that doesn't tell their people anything, right? They keep them in the dark about literally everything, right? They don't
But
want
what
their
if it
people...
makes us look really bad?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It would be really, that to me would be more surprising than confirmation, than seeing Joe Biden up there with his arm over an alien going, yo, look at this guy, right? Like,
Yeah, but
so.
but one possible explanation on why would a country do that is that there could be this idea. So, for example, let's say all these different countries around the world have retrieved crashed materials and have back engineered materials, and let's say that we've retrieved stuff, we've back engineered stuff, and we have technologies that are far beyond what anybody has any idea about, like 0 point energy, all kinds of crazy shit, right? We have that in the background. China has that in the background. Russia has that in the background. There could be a point at a certain point where one of these countries is like, you know what? We need some of this technology we need this to come out because we need to start using this in our actual society, and we just can't hide this shit anymore. And for this technology to come out, we've got to let the effing cat out of the bag, and we're going to do it. And maybe the US found out about this and they're like, oh shit, China's about to freaking let this secret out of the bag. We've got to get out in front of this. I'm just saying that's one like there's some deadline. There has to be some kind of deadline that's happening because this is not being done for fun. I just don't think so. I think this is being forced, and I don't know why. And a real crazy hypothesis, of course, is that it's them, that there is a dialogue with these other things, and these other things have said, look, time's up, bro. We're landing, blah, blah, blah. We're landing on this specific date. You've got like 3 months. Tell your people, get them prepared, do what you got to do. Something could be, I don't know. Like, I really have no idea. One other major speculation is because of, Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Blue Origin, right? They're going to start doing these missions into like lower Earth orbit with actual civilians and stuff. And like, there's a thought that people are going to see shit. Like, this is going to happen. So, now that we've got commercial spacecraft happening, we've got this commercial space industry that we can't keep this secret. Like NASA, NASA, oh, by the way, NASA, let's go over here to the Webinator. So have you seen this video? So is it Bill Nelson? I forget. Who's the guy that's the head of NASA now? I think it might be Bill Nelson. This guy right here. This guy, let's see, what is his name? This guy right here. But basically, he was saying that they've talked to the pilots. They've talked to the pilots, David Fravor and them, and they don't believe that these guys are seeing freaking anomalies, refractions, and, they don't believe that. They've looked at the evidence and they're like, he actually says the word extraterrestrials. He's like, we don't know if this is extraterrestrial, which that's amazing. Because like a couple of years ago, they never would have said that word ever. The fact that that word is coming out, I've seen so many different shows and so many different clips where it's like CNN News and they have like these 4 people up there and they're like talking about this. And like some people are like, yeah, well, we don't know if the aliens are doing this or that. And I'm like, I can't believe these words are coming out of people's mouths. Now, some of these people are jumping way ahead of where they should be, you know, but like, man, it's underway, dude. It's underway. Like, I really believe like the toothpaste is out of the bottle, bro. So like the hardcore skeptics, like, you know, like Mame Fan and stuff, like, you know, it's going to be reality, man. I mean, I'm like, they're going to have to come to terms with this. Well, actually, let me ask you that, Skeeve. Do you think that these people really are going to have to come to terms with this? Or do you think they're going to have enough wiggle room to try to like go down the Project Bluebeam route or to go down the, because like what route do these skeptics go down? Do they go down the, so apparently our military's radar is malfunctioning, the FLIR is malfunctioning, the pilot's eyes are malfunctioning simultaneously. Is that really the road you're going to go down? Because that's not a good road.
It really depends. It really depends on how this disclosure, what they disclose, right? They could come out with something as little as, hey, these things we've been investigating these things and we just can't figure out what they are, right? That could be like the whole thing. Who knows? But at the same time, they could come out, you know what I mean? And be like, blah, blah, blah. We've been contacting with these people. We've recovered this thing, we've grabbed this piece of technology and we're implementing it into this. There's going to be a lot of ways, you know, depending on how much information they actually give us, to either kind of find your own way to still not believe or the opposite. Really depends on what they say here. I would have a really, really hard time believing that we're still going to get the full picture. You know, I still think that there's going to be a high level of something that we're still not going to know about. It could be a whole bunch. It could be just a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I've never been one to trust the government and the world powers. So I don't know. It's all crazy.
Yeah. One of the aspects of it is one possibility is that you have a portion of our government, like a portion of some kind of compartmentalized deep black project where they have physical effing UFOs. They have alien they have actual biological material, whether it's dead or alive. They have actual craft. Like they have the whole freaking kit and caboodle, man. Because I go back to Roswell. Like, see, I'm one of these people. I'm sorry. Roswell was a real fucking event. All right. Now, since it happened. See, the thing is, a governmental agency that wants to hide something or cover something up, all they have to do is inject a few little things to muddy up the waters, and somebody that's already like down the skeptical bandwagon, all they have to do is see a couple of little things and they're like, oh, okay, this whole thing's bullshit, I'm out. That's all they got to do. All they got to do is inject a couple of little misinformation things, a couple of people that were like proven wrong with their quotes or whatever. All they have to do is just put a little bit of that in there. But that doesn't mean that the real substance is all bullshit. But see, if you're a hardcore skeptic, the first sign of any bullshit, you're gone. And I understand that, and I can't blame him for that, because if I was a hardcore skeptic, I'd be the same exact way. But like, I believe we do have physical craft. I believe there has actually been biological material recovered. I believe we know way the hell more about this shit. But here's the thing, though. I believe that all of that could still be in some compartmentalized deep black project that has absolutely nothing to do with this entire disclosure thing. They have nothing to do with this. This is like a problem for them This is a concern for them, but they have not. So what I'm trying to say here is, I believe that if they were involved with this, they could show you straight. They could just be like, we're live from Area 51. Here's an effing UFO right here. You want to see it hover in front of us? We'll freaking lift it up. We'll show you, we'll just show it live on air. Deal with it. We'll land it in New York. We'll land it 10 seconds later in San Francisco. Deal with it. They could do that. But see, I don't think they're involved with this. And so, like, if you look at Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, all these different people, it's very possible that this small group of people basically got out of, and they weren't even in the deep, dark, black project. Like, that's a separate thing. They're investigating it on the outside. And so they're going to the Air Force, and they're going to the Navy, and they're going to the NSA and the CIA, and they're going to all these different groups, and they're getting a little bit of information, but they're not getting the real effing information. They're just getting so there could be two completely separate groups that have the real, the group that has the real shit, and they might not be communicating with what's going on here at all. But if they were involved, this thing would be eliminated. Like if they want to prove that UFOs are real, like, we've got the information. There's just no way in my mind we don't have the information to prove. Like, we could prove this is real without any shadow of any doubt. Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody would be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. That could be proven, but I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, because I think it could be two completely separate groups. What do you think about that?
I could definitely see that being a thing, because like I said, I feel like whatever we get is going to be just kind of the meat on the bone. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to get the whole steak, if you will. It'll be just, maybe they'll trickle stuff out over time as well. That's a good possibility. But what, because you got to consider things like, what if they do have ships that have crashed? They've since kind of repaired them, figured out how they work. What does this do for science? What does this do for our knowledge of physics, quantum physics, any of the stuff that we think we have a really good understanding of? As we see these vehicles break the sound barrier without making a sonic boom, or hit the water after decelerating or declining 80,000 feet in less than a second, hitting the water, creating a splash, but there's no change in speed or anything, right? What does this do to all of these concepts that we feel so confident in, that we know how all of these things work? What does that kind of do to everything? I feel like it could really stir the pot, and it's an interesting scenario, and maybe a great reason why they are going to all these influencers and saying, hey, we need some help with, kind of soft, not laying this out so hard that people are jumping off buildings. You know what I mean? But it would be interesting to see how this is going to affect the scientific community.
I wonder if, so, like, in terms of the data that we're going to get, because they talk about how there's like 120 cases or something like that. And so they're like, oh, it's not just these 3 cases. We've got 120 cases. But when I heard 120, I'm like, you better add a few zeros to that. Like, because if you're going all the way back to like the 1940s, we got way. So to me, it seems like they're unveiling like a very small portion of this whole entire thing. And so I really feel like there's 2 separate groups here. And there's one group that actually knows everything. And so what I mean is, like, so if you went to the Air Force, or you went to the Navy, or if you went to the CIA or the NSA, like the head people that are there, they might not really know much of anything about this. Like they might have the data that they have from their equipment that accidentally picks this shit up when they're trying to find something else, and they accidentally pick that shit up. But they might not have access to the actual real info. Like that could be that could be buried. I mean, that could be locked into private corporations like Lockheed Martin and places like that. So I just don't know that we're going to get, like, are we going to get photographs that are crystal clear, 4K? Like, could we possibly get a photograph that shows us well, I was going to say an alien vehicle, but shows us a unidentified vehicle, but goddamn, is it in high resolution and we can see all kinds of details on the side of it. Like, imagine that. That would be pretty effing juicy, because like all the different photos and videos that we get, all the different photos and videos that we get of stuff, we just don't know what to believe, you know? Like, some of it looks kind of legit. Most of it looks phony as fuck. But if we got a picture that was literally given to us by the Department of Defense, you know, and it's like a close-up photo, like high-resolution photo, because it's like the gun cam footage and all this stuff. Where is all of that? These F-16 jets, like, they're outfitted with some incredible technology. Like, there should be crystal clear photos of this shit, you know? We shouldn't have nothing but just blurry bullshit. Like, there's got to be crystal clear photos. And then, like, way better videos, maybe information from satellites in space. Do you ever remember, Skiva, do you remember this one video? This is from a long time ago. This is like going back to the 90s, where it was a video from space, and it showed like this missile being shot from the ground up into space. You see the missile, and then you see like this craft that, like, boom, it darts off. Like, oh shit, these mofos tried to shoot at us, and it darted off. You've never, it's a famous.
No, I've never seen that.
Oh, it's a famous
check it out after the
video.
show, but no.
I don't know what the I don't know the specific name of it, but it's like super effing famous. Like, it's one of the best pieces of evidence you could ever freaking imagine, because it looks so obvious. It's like, oh my God, we literally shot at those mofos, and they realized that we shot at them, and they freaking took off like within seconds, and like we're gone, and they avoided being shot at. But like, we could.
It's insane to me that we have to shoot at everything we see too. What the hell is that? I don't know. Kill it.
Yeah, I know. Especially, yeah, to try to shoot anything that has to shoot something that is so technologically more advanced than you, that is just like the stupidest thing ever, right? Like, you should just be like, let's try to be like, if you knew that there was something that was way beyond your intelligence level, way beyond your capability level, you would want to try to be as friendly and cordial as possible and be like, hey, I'm no threat, I'm friendly, you wouldn't want to try to antagonize something like that. So
yeah, well, unfortunately, we have all of the countries in the world usually spend most of their money on military and ways to kill things, and it just goes to show our mentality and our how evolved we are as a species, that we still feel like we have to kill everything we see. And, that's probably a reason why, let's imagine that there's all these races out there, different species from different places. There's no way they're going to be like, yo, let's get Earth in on this. Because they're going to be like, no, they're going to shoot at everything. Anything new they see, they're going to be like, oh, let's kill that. And then, go study it. So, maybe this is all like, hey, you guys got to get your shit together, or we're not going to ever make you a part of this, intergalactic confederation, or, who knows, right? But I think our maturity level as a species has to rise before anything major. And it'll be interesting to see, I feel like no matter what, this has to be a trickle thing, right? I can't imagine getting all the info at once, because no one knows how people are going to react to this. People are going to start jumping off of buildings. You don't want to see that, right? So you put out little things to see how the public kind of handles it. Give them a little more, a little more, a little more. Kind of keep an eye out and make sure everyone doesn't go into a panic and freak out. A virus went around. All of a sudden, no one can wipe their ass anymore. There's no toilet paper. We're obviously not that mature. Do you know what I mean? So this is all interesting. It's all very interesting timing, especially. So I can't wait. I really hope we have something really good to report on in another week.
Yeah, so that's what we're waiting on is this report, and I wonder, like, I don't know that we're gonna have like a show like I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna come out of this. So like basically the information's gonna come out, and then you're gonna have like a bunch of UFO nut jobs that are basically gonna pour over every little detail of it. But I wonder if there'll be one juicy nugget that like boom hits the front page, like that beautiful 4K image that I'm talking about of like a super highly detailed image, crystal clear, of some unknown craft.
I don't know that would even get people that don't already believe to believe, right? Because of Photoshop.
No,
You
but
know,
but
even
but they would have to literally go down, like if it's being released by the Department of Defense and you're saying this photo has been released by the Department of Defense, this is a legitimate photo according to them. So if you're now going to say, I don't believe in this photo, then you basically have to say that the Department of Defense is deliberately lying to your ass. Okay, which you can say that and it could be plausible as hell, but now you're going down that bandwagon. Now all of a sudden you were like this rigorous scientific skeptic, and now you just turned into a conspiracy theorist, like literally before our eyes, to say that this picture, and again, I'm not saying that if they gave us a picture like that it's absolute definitive proof, but it's like, damn, now okay, so now you joined us. Now you jumped over to the conspiracy theory side. So I guess you should start going to the conspiracy subreddit every day.
Well, you know, CIA is the one that coined that term to kind of make anything that is off the mainstream narrative to kind of give it a negative just a negative feeling to the general public, so they can just point and go conspiracy theorist, and everyone goes, oh yeah, you don't follow the rest of the herd, right? So it'll be man, it's gonna be really interesting, and I really do hope we get that juicy nugget that we can come back here and, you know, we will be those nut jobs that are kind of combing through all this stuff and really trying to figure out what's going on here and if there's anything new coming. You know, I don't know, the spectrum of what could happen is so large. You know, that's I hope we don't all get our hopes up and have it, you know, just be some nothing. But I don't think so, because I don't know why these people are coming out saying, hey, we've been contacted. Because if the government wants to put this out in a way that's digestible to people and people understand and people aren't afraid, then this is probably the way to do it, right? Contact some influencers that are good at communicating these things. We're in a time and a place where it's not just, you know, the newspapers and the news stations reporting on this stuff anymore. It's normal everyday people. You know, we all have access to free software where you can broadcast and have a voice over the internet and all of these things. So now's an interesting time, and it's an interesting time for things to be either debunked when they aren't actually debunked, right? Because people don't want to believe things. But it's also a time where people could rise up and really get into a lot of these theories that are maybe even just off the wall. So it's all very interesting. And I can't wait to see what's in this report. Hopefully it is actually released. Hopefully it's not just a teeny little slice off the top, you know, of the full cake. So we shall see.
Yeah, and so some people have also brought up the topic, like this was brought up on the UFO subreddit, where they were talking about post disclosure depression or something like that, because they're saying that because so many people in the UFO subreddit are so excited and like, oh my god, this is really happening, you know, this is incredible, I'm so excited, like yeah, this is confirmation, it's all going to happen. And then boom, you get the report, right? And it's like, yeah, we don't really know what these things are, they're moving at incredible speeds, they're breaking the sound barrier, but like there's no hard hardcore like rock, like this material was recovered and it's been analyzed, but there's no like absolute definitive proof that comes out with this, so it's still kind of hazy. And then it's like, oh man, I was depending on this, I was hoping for this, I thought we were going to be entering a new paradigm, I thought this secret was finally being dealt with, and this is like, I could shove this into the faces of all the non-believers and say, deal with this, bitch. Like, Neil deGrasse Tyson and those types, like, deal with this, mofo. But maybe you won't be able to do that. And so, like, maybe you don't get enough information. And then there's like this, oh, this is such a huge disappointment. I'm going to go back into my little cave.
That could go either way, right? Because then if you release everything, it's everything everyone thought it was going to be, then you got people that are just freaked out and they're going to be depressed as well. Look, we're coming off of a global pandemic that has really brought depression levels in general through the roof, right? Suicide levels are up. The people medicated are up. I mean, it's a huge thing right now as we try to kind of reintegrate back into society after all these shenanigans, right? So, either way, I think there's going to be a lot of...
What do you think, like, if you were in charge with, like, let's say you had all the secrets in the world, you have all the information, you have the videos, you have everything, and your job assignment was, Skiva, here's what we want you to do. We want you to release exactly enough information that will thrill the UFO nut jobs, but won't cause tremendous panic at the same time. So it's like this fine line. If you release too much information, you're going to cause straight up mass panic because people are going to be like, oh my God, this is freaking, I can't believe this is real. Oh my God. But if you don't release enough information, you're going to have all these people that are going to be like, oh, this is a bunch of bullshit. I can't believe they're doing this again. This was a head fake. This was like a tease. I mean, they don't care about that. They don't care about teasing UFO freaking fans, so they're not going to care. But let's just pretend that you were trying to dance in between those lines. What would you release? Like a couple of little videos that like show something that is like, oh wow, that's incredible, but maybe it doesn't prove it.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question because I am a guy that's all about truth, right? And I'm a guy that's all about allowing freedom of speech and people to kind of talk about things and kind of come up with their own conclusions, even if they're wrong, right? So for me, it would be like, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and then I just here's everything, woohoo, So because I feel like the people that can't handle it, well, it is what it is. You can't dampen truth because some people are going to have their egos and their world as they know it shattered because because they're so set in the way things are that they can't handle change. I'd probably just dump it all out.
What about this though? What if the Department of Defense says, we fired at one of these things, we hit it, and we recovered some materials, and we analyzed these materials. And these materials are to such a refined degree that it's simply impossible for them to have been manufactured on planet Earth. Like, because then it's like, oh, we've got this material. It's made of like, there's still enough where it's like, oh, well, it's not like an actual flying disc. It's not like little green men or something. You have like materials, you have like elements.
Yeah.
Or do you think that would be too much?
If I were a betting man, if someone said everything you own is up for grabs if you're wrong with this statement, I would probably say that we're going to get as little as they can give us without an uprising, right? I really think they're not going to give us a whole lot. They'll give us just enough to kind of maybe make us feel satisfied that they are providing truth and transparency to the people. But, if I had a bet, I would bet that it was that if we had this much information, that the people are going to get this much information. I don't want it to be that way, obviously. I want to know everything. I'm a truth guy. Like, give me all the information and allow me to figure it out, right?
Yeah. What if the information is so disturbing that's why this secret was kept for 70. What if we find out, like even me as like a fan of this whole thing and like really want, like, being fascinated about it for my entire life, like there's something I could find out where I was like, God damn it, I almost wish I never knew that. You know what I mean? Like, if you, like, I don't know what it would be exactly, but like what if,
yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting, because I'm not a guy that's really afraid of change. You know, a lot of people, if they have their schedule changed in any way during the day, it throws everything off for them, right? But like,
but what if it
I
was
feel,
like they're here because an asteroid is going to collide with our planet in like 5 years, and they know about
well,
it already?
cool. I mean, I think that would be great information to know, right? Because what better way to avoid something than to get all the brain power from all of the
What
people
if they could
on this
only
planet?
take 100,000 of us away? So it's like they got to have a lottery. They're like, we can save
Well, sure.
100,000 of
There's a
you.
lot of doom and gloom scenarios, right? But I think if you present the people on this planet with a problem, and people use the tools that they have, like the internet, to be able to collaborate on some of these problems, I think it's very, I think we can accomplish amazing, amazing things. And we are not in a position with our society to currently do that, right? Because we hire some of these amazing minds and these scientific minds, and we say, you're not allowed to work with any other company. You can only work on our stuff and do this, blah, 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 blah. But if we had some major event that really needed to bring us together to survive, you know, I think it could teach us a whole new way of how to live and how to properly govern, and things like that. I'm the, you know, I would, man, you know, like, this is why they would never come to me for this, because I'd be like, yeah, let's dump it all out on the table, and let's get as many awesome, smart thinking people as we can together to work on these problems, and not by hiring them and making them sign their life away on NDAs and threatening that if they ever talk, we're going to whack them. You know what I mean? Like, here's all the info. Let's figure it out as a race, because race, as we know it on this planet, is an illusion, right? We identify from where we're from, what our skin color is, from the culture that we grew up in, but really we're the human race, right? And I can see no better thing to bring the human race together as one than finding out that there's another race away from us.
Finding out we're inferior. Finding out
yeah,
we're
maybe
inferior.
we're inferior.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a huge problem that we all have to work together to tackle, right? I don't know, but I'm all about truth, transparency, and
The American way.
and kind of not the American way, because that is not the American way. But I'm all about truth and transparency.
Alrighty, well, you know, I think we covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover today. This really was just kind of like a little catch-up episode that we wanted to do, you know, before this announcement came out. I did want to cover the Sam Harris stuff because I thought it was tremendously interesting. The Sam Harris thing, like that, it should be played up way more. There is a website that did a story on the entire Sam Harris thing because they realized how big of a deal that is. But yeah, it's flown under the radar. But so anyway, this Friday maybe we'll get the information. And so when is Dark Frequencies going to be back on the air? Well, I guess we're just going to play it by ear. We'll find out. I mean, if this Friday, if I get that beautiful picture I'm talking about, you know, maybe we'll do a special emergency episode to talk about it. But we'll see what happens. We're definitely going to be back.
Yeah, and in the meantime, people, there's lots of stuff out there for you to check out on all of these things. Look up Sam Harris, look up some of these other people we've been talking about. But also there's also some great kind of mainstream shows. If anyone out there has Gaia, this TV service called Gaia, well, it's not TV, it's like an internet video service. There's this cool show called Cosmic Disclosure where they kind of bring on all these experts. And it's all very current, like happening now, you know what I mean? And they really talk about all this stuff, but they bring in people that have all of these views from all different kinds of facets and all different countries and places and with all these different theories. And it can really help broaden the whole sense of what all of this could actually be. So just wanted to throw that out there. That's a cool show, and there's a lot of stuff out there to look into until this report hopefully drops on us.
Yeah,
and we are back here going, oh my God. Anthony couldn't be with us today. He was actually taken up by one of the UFOs.
He was one of the 100,000. He won the lottery, and he's going to Planet 12. Yeah. When I'm at work, I will do this. I go to YouTube and I do a search. I do a search for UFO disclosure, and then I do it by upload date. And then I just see, what the most recent things is. And then I scroll down and I'm looking for something that's like 45 minutes or, longer, right? Because a lot of them are like 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. It's just somebody saying a quick little thing. But I've found all kinds of discussions where and a lot of them are like skeptical people that don't even believe this. They think it's all a bunch of garbage. But I still want to hear what they're thinking and their thoughts on it. So that's the one thing, man. Regardless of what happens, there's going to be some really good fodder for discussion for like months to come, regardless of what happens, because we're going to get a little bit of juice, if nothing else. So we will have that. But yeah, Dark Frequencies will be back with episode 11 pretty soon, man. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we will be there, and we'll be talking about it. So be sure to tune into that. We'll certainly tweet out when we're going to have a new episode. Unfortunately, because this is kind of like a strange topic, it seems like whenever I tweet about anything Dark Frequencies, it doesn't actually show the, it doesn't pop the thing into the tweet like normal. And so I think this is one of these topics that it's like, oh, you're a conspiracy theory nut. We're not going to let you pop it into your tweet like that. Yeah, so YouTube, Twitter, Google, there's a lot of weird shit going on right now. Don't even want to go down that road, but there's a lot of people's videos that are being deleted for no apparent reason, and there's just a whole lot of censorship is going on. It's kind of crazy. Maybe that'll have to be.
And it's been going on. The past year and a half has been censorship overload, as all of these giant tech companies just try to be the ones that control.
Think about the whole the Wuhan lab leak thing. How that was like, oh, you're a complete conspiracy theorist to think a gain of function lab leak could possibly happen. And then now it's like 180 degrees. Like how freaking, like Facebook literally like shut down discussions on that. And now they have to like, oh, we're sorry. So,
our first Dark Frequencies episode, we got cut off live twice.
Yeah.
Our live stream got shut down twice because we were talking about stuff that isn't allowed.
Yeah.
So go back and check it out, people.
The arbiters of truth out there, man. They want to shut shit down. They want to like this modern era that we're entering in with social media and everything. It really is turning into like a weird deal, man. It really is. It's crazy. But yeah, stay tuned, folks. We'll be back. New episode coming soon. Breaking news. Aliens are real. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll see what happens, guys. That'll do it for this episode of Dark Frequencies, and we'll see everybody next time. So everybody have a good one. Take it easy, and of course, later.